It
Good morning,
is coffee.
sir.
Try not to get that muffled sound. I know the first 7 or 8 seconds. So
I know it's because you come in all hot, like you're backing out of the driveway going
that's
400 miles an hour.
that's right. Hey, Rob Brown here on this Tuesday morning, 29th of July, 2025.
Football starts tomorrow. Football
Practice.
starts tomorrow. Football
Practice.
starts tomorrow.
That's right. And some people are even in school already, which is nuts. But
What schooling system is in school?
the
I
ones
got
up
like
here,
3 weeks.
the ones up here in the Memphis area, and what they do is they go on 9 weeks, then they're off 2 weeks, on 9, off 2.
That's year-round school. That doesn't count.
Well, it cuts the summer in half.
But that's not like traditional summer
no.
break. We got
right.
like 3 weeks, so don't count those kids.
Yeah,
My daughter made me fight that. She says, I'm not going to school year round.
Oh, I agree. And they go until they get out, before Memorial Day, and then they go back in late July, early August. It's ridiculous. But It's 115 up here in
475 degrees today, Rob, in Florida.
I feel like I'm looking at oven instructions. Cook at 475 for 45 to 50 minutes.
You can't stand outside in Florida without just sweating your,
You got to drink a lot of water, folks. Hey, take a picture with your cellular phone of the QR codes. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We're everywhere. And Brendan is putting out reels, man. They're so cool. The one with Dave Bartu yesterday from Instagram. Max Howell was on with us yesterday. Lot to talk about. Brendan broke that story yesterday that Edgar Thompson, I believe, was talking about with DJ Lagway. We'll have any developments on that. I want that guy healthy.
Yeah, well, we all do.
Yeah. So we got Jordan Davis-Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Will Gunner from over in Columbia, South Carolina on the Gamecocks. Yancey Porter on Ole Miss from Oxford. And Rodney Orr will try, if he can, to join us from Tuscaloosa.
We're gonna have to get him. We're gonna have to get him some sort of like cellular phone assistance. I think.
I know. Like
raise some money for him or something.
Maybe a sat phone or something. He's so good. Love that guy. I love all our guests.
Yeah. Let's bring in Jordan Davis-Hill. Hey, Jordan.
Jordan. Hey, it is practice time. We all know. Practice is so much fun. The players. It's like Christmas Eve for them, but at least for the fans, it is because it's all ball from here on out. How you doing?
Doing great. And I don't know if the players are going to say it's about like Christmas, because I was checking when you were talking about the temperature. It's supposed to be 94 in Athens today. So Georgia gets started on Thursday, but I'm sure there's a little bit of excitement. But I know at SEC Media Days, I asked CJ Allen about his first fall camp.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you remember? He said, long days. So that's what they're getting ready for over in Athens.
Yeah, and when you look at Georgia, I keep going back, and we talk about it every time you're on, which is almost every week, and we're so blessed. The reason I think Georgia won last year, they just out-toughed everybody. That's what it was. I don't think it was the best team, you would agree, that Kirby's had. The offense, as you chronicled, 37 drops by the receivers, but they found excuses to win. Now you've got some better players at some of the positions where maybe they were a little deficient last year. I don't see how you can't make the case that Georgia is the preseason pick. In my opinion, whatever anybody says, I still have them to win it. And I think Texas and Florida and Alabama and other schools will be fighting them, but I still got Georgia.
That's where I am, and it's a situation where I've just seen this time and time again these last few years. It's just very dangerous to count Georgia out, and I get the hesitation. I think that what we got to see of Gunnar Stockton, I can understand why some people would say, okay, I don't think he can take Georgia where they've got to go, but I think there's a lot of potential with Gunnar, especially with an entire offseason as the guy. But they've surrounded him with playmakers at receiver, and they've brought guys back at tight end. Their running back room, they've got probably 7 guys that you could realistically see getting some playing time at running back. Defense is going to be a big question. They lost 3 first-round picks off that defense. But they've just done such a good job year after year reloading that I think they'll be all right. So, I was honestly a little surprised Georgia was picked to make the SEC title game at Media Days. I sort of thought that they might be third, but I had Georgia winning the SEC. That was my pick. But I do think it's going to be a heck of a fight. I could see, any of Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and probably wouldn't count out LSU either. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a fun fight over the course of the fall.
Well, when you look at Georgia, let's talk about the receivers. Guys that got out of high school, guys coming in via the portal. Who do you think is most likely to take the lead position as the guy that can, catch 800 to 1,000? And 1,000, that's a mile. I don't care what school you're at in the SEC. 1,000-yard receiver is a rare thing, especially at Georgia. It's only Terrence Edwards out of Sandersville, Georgia, Waco, Washington County High School.
It's going to get rarer and rarer.
Yeah,
I think as we go, where I say that a lot. Yeah. But we're going to see less of it with the parity.
I agree, and only one guy's done it, Terrence Edwards at Georgia, and he did it by like 4 yards. He had like 1,004 yards, something like that. But I think to me, the answer is pretty clear. It's Zachariah Branch, the USC transfer, had a fantastic spring, and I see him being that slot guy, being that guy that Gunnar Stockton can hit across the middle. And the thing that I'm really interested in is just to see what his yards after catch looks like. Because when I think about Georgia's 2024 offense, and if you told me sort of break down the explosive passing plays, a lot of those came through the air. They were deep shots. I think Zachariah Branch is a guy that can catch like an 8-yard pass and turn it into a 25-yard, completion. And I think that's really interesting. Gunner's got a good arm, and I think he showed that probably more so in the Sugar Bowl. But I don't think they have to throw deep in order to create explosive plays. So I really like Zachariah Branch to be that lead guy. But to Brendan's point about 1,000-yard receivers, he may not get there because Georgia's receiver room is really, really deep. And I think about a couple years ago when they were really productive as a receiver room, they did a pretty good job of rotating receiver like I've seen them do defensive line. Like they were rotating guys in pretty frequently. Yeah. And obviously that's going to affect a guy's receiving yards over the course of the year. But I think if you ask Kirby Smart, would you rather have one 1,000-yard receiver or 4 or 5, 600, 7-yard guys? He would take the second one, no doubt. And I think that is the right choice. So we'll see how much these guys actually get to play. From what we've seen, I think there's a lot of excitement about this room, and rightfully so. But I see Zachariah Branch leading the way, but they have no shortage of other guys they can go to, and I think they will go to over the course of the year.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, just like with the running back position, Herschel Walker's record's safe, Bo Jackson's records are safe, Leonard Fournette's at LSU, whatever, because guys are not going to stick around that long. And nor I think they're now asking, don't give me 35 or 40 carries a game. As crazy as that sounds, receiver by committee. If you've got one guy that gets 1,500 yards receiving, I'm going to just guess your record is 7-5 or 8-4. You got 3 or 4 at 600, 800, several running backs in the 600 to 800 range. You're probably 11-1 or 12-0. That's football. It's so different now.
Yeah, and I think about 2 years ago when you look at Georgia was right on the cusp of making the playoff, and a lot of that, when you look at that receiver room, it was mostly Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. But go to that Alabama game, the SEC title game, both those guys were hurt, and that passing game wasn't the same. They were still in the mix. They only lost that game by 3. But I think you saw the effect of they relied so heavily on those two guys. Yep. And they were both very clearly not 100%. It wound up showing in how they were playing from behind for the better part of that game.
You look at the schedule this year. You got Texas coming in to Athens, Ole Miss, and Alabama. And Alabama, we all know, 1-9 in the last 10 games. That's been a nightmare for Georgia. Yet in the middle of all that, they've won 2 national championships, played for another one that they did not win. It's just a sign that I think Kirby, he's the only coach in the league, isn't he, who's won a championship, conference, or national title of any of the 16 coaches. Am I correct?
Off the top of my head, that sounds right.
Yeah. And you look at now the quarterback room. Let's go back to Gunnar Stockton out of Rayburn County, Georgia. Tough kid. He says the right things. He looks the part of a quarterback. Dave Bartu was on yesterday, College Football Matrix, talking, said this is a quarterback league. Your QB1 goes down. You pick the school. Who's your backup? Texas could say that with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, but not anymore. It's Arch and that guy behind him. Talk about the QB room at Athens.
Yeah, it's extremely young, and it's one where I'm fascinated to see. You got to keep Gunnar Stockton healthy just because he's your QB1, but
Yeah.
they are super inexperienced behind him. The backup's going to be Ryan Puglisi. He's a redshirt freshman, didn't play at all last year, and did not go through spring practice last year because he was dealing with a knee injury going back to his high school days. And then behind him are two true freshmen, and one of them,
Okay.
Ryan Montgomery, didn't practice in spring practice because he was coming off an ACL tear from his senior year of high school. So I was really interested to see if Georgia tried to go get a veteran just as basically insurance, in case that Gunnar Stockton got hurt and they needed, a experienced backup. And whether they tried to get that and couldn't, or decided they felt good about the room they had, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to quarterback, it's a lot on Gunnar Stockton, and people are excited about Ryan Puglisi, his potential. He's got a
Mhm.
big arm, and
Yeah.
we've heard about that really ever since he got to Georgia. But that would be a lot of unknown and a lot put on an inexperienced guy if Gunnar Stockton were to get banged up this year.
You know, Carson Beck, we know he's gone to Miami. What are you going to miss most about him? What will Georgia, the team and the fans say, wow, Carson could do that or he couldn't do that? That
I
Gunner
think
can.
I Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the known consistency.
Okay.
And, he did have some rough games in the middle of last season, but, I think that he was a guy that Georgia fans counted on and felt pretty good about. And, some of that, you know, uh, last year did not go the way they wanted it to, but knowing that he had done it before, knowing that he had that 2023
Yeah.
season, I know fans were frustrated last year, but I do think for the most part, people were feeling like, okay, he can get out of this. He can work his way out of this. And I thought toward the end of the regular season, he started to do that, which made him getting hurt in the SEC title game all that more disappointing. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of a situation to me. You knew what you were getting in Carson Beck. Right now, fans are really going on, a half, an overtime, and then a game against Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl of what we know of Gunnar Stockton. I don't really put much stock in any games against like UMass or Tennessee Tech last year, just because we know the caliber of that opponent. So I think with Carson, you know, you knew what you were getting, and it wasn't always consistent, and it definitely wasn't last year. But I think fans are ready for a new chapter. I think just the way all that played out by the time he got hurt, and he's going pro and no, he's going to transfer instead. I think the majority of fans are excited to see what Gunner can do, all the while knowing that there is a lot of unknown with his game.
Rob, you're muted.
Yeah. In this culture of transferring, you've got to think, wow, can you have those second and third teamers? Georgia had Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift there on the roster. Vandegrift went to Kentucky, didn't have a stellar time up there. Carson Beck, we'll see what he does at Miami. Okay, so looking at the defense, I mean, all you got to do is look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philly Dogs. It really is 25 guys in that 2-year period drafted, plus a bunch of free agents. Again, who's going to emerge out of this freshman class that can help? Because that front seven, I still say it, it's the savings and loan. You got to have 2 and 3 deep to win a national championship on defense.
Well, I look on defense. The first freshman I would point out is Elijah Griffin, and this guy was a 5-star. This is a guy that I think is going to get in the mix very early on. Don't think he's going to start because they've got some experienced D linemen ahead of him, but I think he very much has the potential to be the next star defensive lineman for Georgia. Now, it may not happen this year, but I think if you give him time, and Dalen Everett was asked about him at media days, and he said, he couldn't remember specifically what happened, but he said he remembered one day in the weight room, Elijah doing something where he was just like, man, a freshman should not be able to do that. And someone asked him about Jalen Carter, and he said, well, it's not really fair to compare a guy like that to Jalen Carter. But he said, I could see maybe a young Jalen Carter in Elijah. So you look at that, that'd probably be my go-to guy. But they've got some really intriguing outside linebackers, Isaiah Gibson, Darren Akinenbon, Chase Linton. All of those guys are true freshmen. I don't think they're going to play a ton. They went and got Ella Madosi from Army, and I think he's going to be your starter at outside linebacker. But those are the guys I'm really looking at as far as impact guys early on. Defensive line, that edge rusher, outside linebacker. I think those guys can get in the mix. And I would tell anyone listening, if you want a freshman you want to pay attention to at Georgia, I'd probably point to Elijah Griffin.
And defensive lineman, I mean, 35, 40 snaps at max. That's a lot for a 300 plus pound guys. And especially the way the game's played. Used to come right at you. Now they got to run wide at you. All right. Before you go, what is a storyline or two going on at Georgia that other people don't know about, but they will if they subscribe to 24/7 Sports and listen to and watch that damn good podcast that you've got? Damn Good Dogs do great podcasts.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I would say the two storylines to watch. Offensive line, to me, this is my biggest question on this entire team. They lose 4 starters from last year, a line that was experienced and expected to do big things, and they disappointed last year. So to be breaking in a new offensive line, it's a group that fall camp is going to be very important, because that group, those starting 5, those expected starting 5, did not get to go through spring practice together. Monroe Freeling, who will be the starting left tackle, he was out after having a labrum repair before spring practice. And then Daniel Calhoun, who I think will be the starting right guard, he got hurt. Probably 2 weeks left in spring practice, so they need to get those guys all on the same page. And the other position I would point to is safety. Okay. They feel great about KJ Bolden. I think he'll be one of your starters, but they got to figure out the other position. Ja'Cory Thomas, who's a senior, who's bided his time at Georgia. I think he's leading that race. But Adrian Maddox, who transferred from UAB, Zion Branch, Zachariah's brother, who transferred from USC. I see those 3 guys in that mix. I think this is a competition that I think will go through fall camp and probably into the season. But that safety one is one of the bigger position battles we'll be looking at during camp.
All right. How do they follow you? I know you're active on Twitter. I mean, folks, it is nonstop. If there's something going on, Jordan Davis Hill is about 3 or 4 plays ahead, kind of like Tom Landry and Steve Spurrier coaching football.
Something like that. I appreciate that. But dogs247.com, we got a 30% off sale right now, or pay $1 for your first month. So be sure and get signed up there. On Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at dogs247. Rob mentioned our podcast, the Junkyard Dogcast. That's going to have a live episode today at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. Just going to be previewing fall camp. Should be a fun episode there. So football's nearly here, Rob and Brendan, and excited to get this thing going, and excited to catch back up with you guys and let everybody know what's going on.
Hey, 744 hours away if anybody's keeping track. Just gotta keep up with the hours. So it'll be here. Jordan, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
All right. I think I'm right on that. 31 days. That's 700. Wow. Golly, 744 days. Will Gunner over in Columbia, South Carolina. Saul J. Phillips from 107.5 at Media Days. You all are the booming voice in the Palmetto State, and you've switched your time. What time is your live show now? I know I didn't mean to jump the gun a few weeks ago, but is it official?
Yeah. And it kind of what today is Tuesday. I'm kind of trying to figure everything out myself, because we switched on July the 7th to 12 to 3. So as you can see, I don't have I think as I came on, I had the backwards hat. I'm trying to now.
I like
actually
that.
Coming in trying to book a haircut, because now I got to look a little more professional in the morning.
Oh, I like the backwards hat. I was feeling it. It looks
yeah,
good.
come on. It's okay.
I got the collared shirt. I've showered before I've gotten up. All the things you do that you're supposed to do in the morning if you're not getting up at 5 a.m. and doing the show at 6. But no, we did. I was actually just looking at I'm like, I got to really get, because I was on vacation with my kids last week. I went to a Braves game. I was at Myrtle Beach for a few days. I wasn't worried about impressing anybody, but
no, you got to let that gray in, dog. You got to get it.
Well,
get it. That looks good. Yeah, it's good, man.
I'm gonna be. I need to get an endorsement for whatever hair club for men or something.
Just for men, big money.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, by the way, you went to the Braves game, and Billy Roberts and my son-in-law Tyler Keelan. They're not Braves fans; they're Bravesologists, and they are get rid of everybody except it's getting bad for the Braves fans.
Yeah, that's a whole other hour and a half we could do on where they're at right now. Just, I mean, it's kind of like they put out. I think it was on. Again, my days are a little off. I officially came back to work yesterday, and I know we'll talk about it. We had the Birdies with Beamer event, but I mean, I think they put out over the weekend that the original starting five from March is all on this disabled list now, and that doesn't count Spencer Strider, who was out in March and is now back. So yeah, it's football season. Let's just say that there's no more Braves talk around here. We had a segment called Chop Talk. It's been chopped out. We're officially on the football because it got going yesterday with a little media golf event for Shane Beamer.
Well, you look at South Carolina from last year, man, that close loss to LSU, and that was they had it and they didn't. Same thing on the road at Alabama. You think that was a mental part? Guys didn't really believe they could win. They thought they could, and now a year later, they're mature, and maybe Shane Beamer and that staff have gotten through to him and saying, "Guys, just finish the job." Because last year, you look back at South Carolina, they were right there on the edge, knocking on the door. Someone's knocking at the door, let them in. They didn't get in the playoffs, but that's fueling, I think, and making workouts probably a lot more passionate.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. That LSU game, obviously, everybody wants to talk about officiating and some questionable calls down the stretch. You also, a big part of that game was the fact that Lenore Sellers gets injured right before halftime. What happens if he plays the second half? You had to go with Robbie Ashford, and that was
Okay.
really it looked like it was Lenore Sellers coming out party early on. He had the big run. He looked like he'd settled in. I had him on. This is an interesting topic because it kind of pertains to what you just brought up about. We had him on during SEC Media Days during our show, and one of the things I asked him
Yeah.
locally around here, big deal was him switching from the goggles to contacts, and
Yeah.
that was the first game he had switched from the goggles, which was a big deal around here, to the
Yeah.
contacts, and you
Yeah.
could see a difference. And it sounds kind of stupid. You think, boy, you should have figured this out earlier, but if he doesn't get injured against LSU, that I think set him back. He didn't play the next week against Akron, and then he really wasn't himself against Lane Kiffin in Mississippi, and they get beat 27-3.
Hmm.
And it looked like he was coming into his own against Alabama. And I was there in Tuscaloosa for that game. Alabama crowd is shocked. Of course, they had just lost to Vanderbilt the week prior, and there's a turnover, a pivotal turnover in that game. And that's something that we talk about 2025 here.
Yeah.
Lenores has to clean up. Even going back to that Clemson game, there's some pivotal turnovers he has in that. On the very first series of the Clemson game, he fumbles and they're driving down. He throws an interception in the red zone late in that game, and he kind of everybody talks about the great run, but that's with South Carolina learning as a football team, but they were a pretty veteran football team
Yeah.
last year. And that's a lot of the discussion is for us today as I sit here and look at our rundown and everything that we're going to talk about. You lost some serious veterans on that defense. I don't know if it's as simple as saying, well, they were young and they were learning to grow.
Hmm.
That'll carry over to this year.
You sit there and you think about the five defensive players. Weren't there five drafted in the NFL?
Correct. Yep.
Um, that's hard to replace. And everybody is the most coveted position among the linemen is the defensive lineman. They're just hard to find, but there's more of them in the South than anywhere else in the country. There's the occasional oddballs that that like Clemson pulled out of Rhode Island, Cleon, and what was the big lineman's name? He was from Rhode Island. It's just not a place that anybody goes to recruit. You might go to Block Island to the beach, but not to recruit for football. So looking at South Carolina offensive line, this is a question. It's so hard to develop depth, but you can if you can get the guys to stick together for a while. How they looking?
Offensive line.
Yeah.
Offensive. Um, that's the story around here for years and then you make up a great point. It's the haves and the have-nots of the SEC. The haves, the LSUs, the Floridas, the Georgias, the Alabamas. They have offensive linemen, and they have them in bunches. They recruit them really well. South Carolina has done an exceptionally great job, probably the best I've ever seen in my 43 years of recruiting the offensive line. And they're obviously in play right now for a five-star Darius Gray, who was out of the Virginia area, South
Okay.
Carolina, LSU, and Tennessee, and he would be another big pickup if they were able to get him. But if you're talking
Wow.
about the current class, you got a five-star in Josiah Thompson who's going to hold down the left tackle position. Tree Babalade, who is out of the Maryland area, who's a big time 4-star prospect, will play somewhere. They have a transfer out of Troy, Boaz Stanley, who they really like to come in and take over the center position. But they've got 4 stars. Now, it doesn't matter when you play on Saturdays, it's completely irrelevant, or Sundays in the case of August 31st. What your star ranking was, but South Carolina's recruited some highly thought of offensive linemen, and it's a big year. And it's a really interesting year because Lonnie Teasley, the offensive line coach, again has probably recruited as well as any person ever to coach the offensive line. But the production when you actually play the game has been subpar. So it's a big year for them to step up, and they've got a nice mixture of transfers. They got a mixture of highly rated recruits. We'll see kind of how it all plays out. I see somebody asked about, they said Tree. Yeah, I can't pronounce his first name. I'm not going to try. If you've ever listened to our show from 12 to 3, you know pronunciation of names, let alone tough names, not my specialty. So we just call him Tree Babalade. But
There you
he's
go.
built like a tree. He's big,
Yeah.
big boy.
Yes. Well, there was a former Atlanta Hawk basketball great, Tree Rollins.
Yeah.
See, we think about that. All right. So South Carolina, there's a lot of momentum. The way you close out, Lenora Sellers, everybody's excited about him. Your first conference game I see on here, and it's September 13th, Vanderbilt. The Fighting Pavias come down there in Eli Stover. That's going to be a really big game. I think when South Carolina went on the road last year and WWE curb stomped, RIP Hulk Hogan, Kentucky up there in Lexington. That was impressive. And then, I think also the Ole Miss game, the timing couldn't have been worse for Lenora Sellers to not have a great game. The proud son of Florence, South Carolina, home of the Swamp Fox, Francis Marion. But Ole Miss had just lost at home to Kentucky, and they were madder than a bunch of wet hens when they went to Columbia, and everything clicked for them. It was like 27-3. But other than that, the LSU game and the Alabama game, they were, just right to the finish. This is a team that is really close. I haven't seen a mental mindset at South Carolina like this in a long time. 11, 12, and 13 of the 10, 11, 12, and 13. That 4-year run, that's got to be the best in school history. Frank Beamer, I bet, looks at those years and wants to even do better. I'm sorry, Shane Beamer.
Yeah.
I love his dad. I'm a Virginia Tech fan too.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. I mean, you got to go back to the very top of that schedule. I think as we get closer now, you see, you mentioned Vanderbilt, but you look to the first game to the right there, and you see it's Virginia Tech. Brent Pry has had a pretty good team.
Yeah.
I think they were 7-6 last year, 6-7, 7-6. They replaced a lot of their roster. They got 2 new coordinators, but the quarterback is back. And look, South Carolina goes into this game. You're replacing the backbone of your defense. You go right up through the gut. You talk about losing 3 defensive linemen, 2 particular to the NFL. When you talk about T.J. Sanders and Tonka Hemingway, and Alex Hunley was a big part of that. There was a 4th guy, DeAndre Jules, who didn't get drafted but was a big part. Had some injuries last year, but was a big part of that. They completely lose all the linebackers. Debo Williams, who had been around for 20 years. Demetrius Knight, who played college football, who was 20, played college football for about 17 years, was married, had 2 kids. I'm not joking about that, by the way. Married, had 2 kids, spent his Saturdays not playing football at Home Depot or Lowe's, picking up home how you do projects. And then they lost another guy that didn't get drafted in Bam Martin Scott, who was a kind of a 4th or 5th year player as well. So, and then you lost Nick Eamon-Warring, who had an interception at Seattle Seahawks camp yesterday. So you lose the middle of the backbone of your defense, and you've got to replace that. And so that Virginia Tech game's huge. Then you get South Carolina State. You mentioned it. Look, Vanderbilt, I'm not trying to put Vanderbilt down, but in this league, don't run your mouth. Don't give teams bulletin board material. And that will be a night game. Vanderbilt will be a night game, 7 or 7:45. South Carolina fans are going to be fired up for that.
Yeah.
Diego Pavia has already has publicly said he's looking forward to that game. Don't do that. Don't, and then you get actually a big one. If I'm thinking correctly, you'd have to go back to that schedule. I'll get my dates mixed up. But then you got Missouri and Kentucky. And
Yeah.
we'll see what Kentucky is. Obviously, you're right. Week 2 last year, you went, wow, that's a great victory, 31-6. Boy, you knocked them off their block, and it turned out
Yeah.
Kentucky stunk, and Brock Vandergrift couldn't have. The three of us could have played quarterback at Kentucky better than Brock Vandergrift. So all of a sudden, that victory that looked the same, but you got that Kentucky Missouri kind of run right there on the 20th and the
Yeah.
27th. You get October 4th off, and then October 11th comes, and you go, okay, here we go. Baton Rouge, Oklahoma comes to Columbia on the 18th.
Yeah.
Alabama comes on the 25th, and there comes you go to Oxford on the 1st. So that first, you see how the schedule stretches out. You got a chance to be 5-0. You got a chance. You can be 5-0, and boy, that game in Baton Rouge on October 11th, game day could be there. It could potentially be a top 5 game.
Yeah.
Nussmeyer and Sellers, Heisman talk. That thing could be massive,
Yeah.
but you got to get through the first 5, and quite frankly, you got to get through the very first one with Virginia Tech.
It almost reminds you of that '07 Florida at LSU matchup in Baton Rouge. That was, Tebow's first year as the starter. I'm looking Gary Stoken. I got to talk to him a lot. I love this guy, and I got to know him through Tommy Tuberville, Atlanta Sports Authority, Chick-fil-A CEO, the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. They are excited beyond words about that South Carolina Virginia Tech, the Beamer Bowl, they're calling it, and that is, I mean, Atlanta. The day before, you got Tennessee and Syracuse. So, yeah, you get a win. Brent Pry, I watched ACC Media Days. I'm trying to pay attention to all this stuff. You look at a game, yeah, when I thought last year when South Carolina went on the road and just killed Oklahoma, and there wasn't a lot of offense. It was some turnovers and the defense. That was the most dominant road performance I can remember from a South Carolina team against a top 6 national brand, Oklahoma. That's another thing I would really be looking at if I'm South Carolina. And that's like knocking down a 14, 16 point, 300-pound buck. I mean, 6-year-old. That's big.
Yeah, but it's the world of college football that we live in.
Yeah.
You're right. Boy, did South Carolina destroy Oklahoma? Yeah, that's what exactly was correct. But boy, Oklahoma stunk last year. Now they had that great win against Alabama and blew them
Yeah.
off the field there in Norman. Um, you know, Last year I remember sitting at my son's AAU basketball game in week 0, and we're watching on my cell phone. We're not paying attention to the kids who are locked in a close game. I'm paying attention to Florida State and Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And Georgia Tech's blocking kicks, and we're going, wow, or making kicks. I can't remember, what an upset. And the kid, we'd have to look around the phone of me and a bunch of parents, and you go, what a start to the season. What a huge upset. Georgia Tech's
Yeah.
not, well, 6 weeks later, we're like, huh, Florida State stinks.
Yeah.
That wasn't that impressive at all. So, everything I think is individual in college football, and so you look at opening week, Alabama and Florida State.
Yeah.
We will know what that game means in October. Is it a huge win? Let's say Florida State wins. Do we all
Yeah.
of a sudden crown Florida State is back, or do we say, boy, Kalen DeBoer and Alabama's fallen off? Clemson, LSU. Brian Kelly. A lot of people say he can't get over the hump, and he's got this huge year. If Clemson wins that game, well, what does it mean for them, or is LSU not the team we're hoping or thought that they would be, and so forth and so on? You can go down the line, Ohio State, Texas.
Yeah.
So I think you go back to what you're talking about last year with beating Oklahoma. It was great. It was great locally because you did something, as you just said, historically that
Yeah.
doesn't happen around here. But you go to that Virginia Tech game. If Virginia Tech beats South Carolina, does that mean South Carolina's a great win for them, or did it turn out that South Carolina's not who we thought they were supposed to be, vice versa, and you can go on down the line from there. But it's going to be a fun week 0. And to your point on that Virginia Tech game, you get that is such a huge game for South Carolina, who is trying to establish themselves nationally, and that's
Yeah.
really for me the big point of the season. If you were to have a title for the season, is you're trying to really establish yourself. You come off 9-4,
Mm-hmm.
9-3 regular season, 9-4, and what you're trying to accomplish here is to say, hey, we aren't a flash in the pan. We aren't a one and done. We've got this quarterback. We've got this defensive end in Dylan Stewart. We belong here. Hey, other recruits, come look at what you can do. Because if you go 7-5, which is very possible, very, very likely,
Yeah. In this
everybody
league.
goes, well, that was a neat 1 year. Great job. You beat up on Oklahoma, who stunk. You got Missouri, who was trying to figure it out with an injured Brady Cook. There's so many things. But at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, on the 31st, you're the only game in town.
You
You're the
are.
only game nationally. all these Heisman people who I want to watch some college football. Oh, Lenore Sellers, he's on my Heisman list. Let me watch him. I'm not having to watch him against Arch Manning or Garrett Nussmeyer or Cade Klubnik. He's the only game on. Big, big, big opportunity for South Carolina to make a national name at 3 o'clock on August 31st. The only college football game that leads into Miami Notre Dame that night.
Yeah.
And I think we need to just, I told people this the other day, and I'd like to hear your comment. Well, is, you can lose now. You don't have to be perfect as much as we used to be in a lot of ways. We're going to the, the game has changed. There's more parity. It's more even. Do you agree or disagree with that, Will?
Yeah. I mean, you can lose. I guess what you're asking, what I would say is South Carolina gets that game in a prime moment where if you lose, people are going to shove them. That doesn't mean they're out of the playoff race. It's not a conference loss.
Hell no.
It's actually irrelevant. But what it does is it shoves them to the back of the national scene because, again, South Carolina's still fighting to get that national perception, and you got Lenore Sellers. But you're 100% right. I mean, Alabama
culturally, I just think I was just saying as a whole, like we used to, perfection was the goal. You lose one game, and you'd be like, my season's over.
Yeah.
I came back from Myrtle Beach on Saturday with my kids, and I kind of exhausted. I've had a long week. They're 15 and they're 13. They need money every time I turn around. So I shoved them out of the way on Saturday. Hey, leave Dad alone. There's pizza in the fridge. And I go lay in my bed, and the Saturdays in the South is on. That great documentary on ESPN.
God, so good.
Cannot watch that enough.
Dad's on that one.
And you go back, and there's Tim Tebow in 2008. What was whenever they lost to Mississippi, and he's talking about how important going undefeated. They lost that game, but how important it was going undefeated. Now you look at it and go, well, if we lose 2 games, who cares? Maybe we don't get home field. So you're 100% right on that because of the way the college football playoff is playing out. I think we get better games. We get more interesting games in November, which I never thought I'd be saying. But you have games that matter, like last year with South Carolina in particular, and Missouri and Texas, and that game against Clemson. But maybe we lose some luster in September, where you go, well, if you lose that game. I mean, let's be honest. We'd probably still be talking about Vanderbilt beating Alabama in I think that was October. I think it was the first weekend in October. But it was irrelevant. Alabama, Alabama was still in the playoff hunt on Thanksgiving weekend, whereas early on you just be like, wow. A couple of years ago, we'd be like, Vanderbilt beat Alabama. This never happens.
Well, you got to go back just a few years ago, and Lee Fitting, I think he's one of the top execs with ESPN. He said, this playoff and what we want to have happen is in November that fans in the South are interested in the Apple Cup, rivalry, Washington State, whatever. And now because of the playoff, it is happening and it's making the games in November matter. Will Gunter, stay on if you can. We'd love to have you. Rodney Orr, I absolutely love this guy. He's not only a great dad, he's an incredible grandfather. He's got grandfather duties this morning, which preclude him from joining us on the show. Yancey Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford, Mississippi. Sports 56 WHBQ, Monday nights, 6 p.m. and all over the Magnolia State on Super Talk, Mississippi is with us. So Will, say hello to Yancey. Yancey will cover South Carolina, obviously in Oxford, Mississippi. He covers the Beacon. No, it's closed. He covers Ole Miss. And we're going to talk some SEC football. Brendan, Rob, all of us. And Max Howell was on yesterday. Someone had to ask. It was Buddy Martin. Hey, Max, what's for supper? I mean, well, let's bring back Hee Haw, by the way. But Yancey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Good. You up in Gatlinburg?
Gatlinburg, first time, little family trip.
All right. I was talking to some friends that watch this show every day. Jim and Pat McClellan from Little Rock. They're out in Colorado up in the mountains. He goes, yeah, it's nice here. It's 64. We're going for a hike. I was like, in Frisco, they're at 9,100 feet.
No humidity, though. That's the difference.
Humidity.
Yeah, it's not that here in Gatlinburg. It's hot.
I would be remiss before we go on. I just want to say, Rob, we're very sorry about your loss, and your father passed, and I know you got these guys on here, and not a lot of people know, but I know you mentioned at the end of your show, and I know Yancey and those guys are close. So, just thoughts of you and your family and stuff like that. And,
Thank you.
I know he meant a lot to you. So,
he's the biggest fan of the show. That's what he was doing right there at the end, was watching this show. It made him, and it got to the point where he's like, how do I find that show? I said, I ain't showing you because he goes, you always told me if I do it for you, you're not learning anything. So he'll figure it out. But he's watching right now. How you doing, Grand Bob? But I want to tell you, thank you, Brendan, so much. And look, we're blessed beyond belief to have unbelievable guest, producer, audience watching. I'm gonna tell you what, work's the greatest healer of them all. Work and prayer. Yancey, talking about Ole Miss and South Carolina, this SEC. Let's get some back and forth. And Brendan yesterday was breaking that story that Edgar had given him. I
Well,
think,
buddy had given me. We were just talking about how Edgar Thompson, one of the beat writers
yeah,
for University of Florida, before that Feinbaum, and then ran with it yesterday. We had it here that DJ Ligo was in a boot over the, and he was seen in a boot.
yeah.
And of course, Edgar did not confirm or deny it on Shane Matthews' show, and then so that sort of started the ball rolling. But we were talking about it yesterday, and now they're reporting a lower body injury, nothing serious, but we don't know anything more. And of course, practice starts tomorrow. So.
All right, let me have another one, guys, on breaking news. And I just got this. It appears there's been some questions, and Malcolm Simmons, the Auburn wide receiver, who was accused of some stuff. Today is report day for Auburn football. Is that really matters anymore since kids train year round? But apparently, the expectation is Malcolm Simmons, who was arrested last week on a domestic assault charge, will practice with the team. That is something that is developing. And I did ask some attorney friends of mine. They said those kinds of cases, you got to be very fluid. So a lot of stuff happening. So we'll keep you up to date. But Yancey, Ole Miss reports for practice. It's football time. Let's talk blocking and tackling. And I just you can never get too excited about football, can you?
No, you can't. Injuries are kind of the tell of the tale at the Ole Miss camp as well. Luke Haas, the tight end, dislocated his ankle 2 weeks ago, had surgery. They're hoping he's going to be back for the Arkansas game. We'll see. Obviously, yeah, the shooting with the freshman killed
Horrible.
Corey Adams a week ago, and three other players have been shot, and reportedly two are out for the season, which includes T.J. Banks. They're starting their best defensive back. So I don't. I'm hearing conflicting stories if he's really going to be out. There's a lot of muddy water right now concerning the whole situation. What happened there in Memphis at
Ugh.
that pool party, and so there's a bit of cloud that they're trying to get away and trying to get everything cleared up. But I'm hearing conflicting reports. If TJ, I hear he's not going to miss any time at all, but there are stories he's going to be out. Reports he's going to be out for the season as long as MJ Preston, the true freshman from IMG, another defensive back that have worked himself into the rotation over spring drills. He graduated early, and I'm hearing he's not seriously injured as well. So, there's a lot of question marks going into camp. Who's hurt, who is not hurt. We do know that Corey was obviously killed, and um, Luke Hotz, the big time tight end they got for Arkansas, he's definitely out at least the
Yeah.
Arkansas game.
Well, you got that story out of Memphis was just horrible. And I look, Will and I were talking earlier about Ole Miss. Last year you lose at home against Kentucky. You go on the road and 27-3 against South Carolina. And I want to ask you this, Yancey, and then go back to Will on this Ole Miss team again. The defensive line, Pete Golding is so maligned as a defensive coordinator. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm being silly, but you ain't going to last 4 years on the staff with Nick Saban if you're not good. Let's put that to bed. That Pete Golding's not a good coordinator. I think he does a damn good job. I mean, you've been around him, you know him, and I think it's time he gets some credit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cover Alabama while he was there. I certainly watched him. I know what kind of job he's done at Ole Miss. Maybe he's grown, first P5 DC jobs. So maybe he's grown as a coach, but he's become one of the elite defensive coordinators and one of the elite recruiters in the country. So he's definitely he's definitely kind of where Lane Kiffin hangs his hat on. He leans on Pete, and he's got total control of the defense. And I don't expect Ole Miss to have the number one defense in the country like they did last year, but I do expect them still to be top 20ish.
Yeah. Will, looking at talking about defense, last year, that South Carolina defense, the defensive front makes such a difference. I mean, if you got good defensive linemen, they can tie up offensive linemen, linebackers fill those gaps. Tell me this, looking at the SEC, Dave Bartu on yesterday, College Football Matrix, it's a quarterback driven league. The offensive coordinators now are better than the defensive coordinators in almost every school. I agree with that. Do you?
No. I mean, you got to have, and you look at Mississippi last year, and you look at their defensive front, and I can't remember the kid that I know the kid that they got from Florida, but I'm not even going to try to
Austin
pronounce.
Simmons.
No, that's the quarterback.
Yeah.
The defensive lineman Prince something. Yancey knows, and
Yancey, what's his name? Prince.
Go get him.
There
you go, Brandon. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, the dude from Florida. Yeah,
Prince.
But you look at their defensive line; they had Walter Nolan and the guys. They have look it. This league, you got to have a competent quarterback. There's no doubt about that. But you've got to have defensive linemen. That is what separates the SEC apart from every other league is the athleticism. A good buddy of mine, Ryan Bartow, who now does, I don't know who he does scouting for. He used to call the Carolinas D-line heaven. And you look at what separated, what made Clemson out of the ACC a team that could compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias and everybody. They went out and landed Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence,
yes,
and Keelan Farrell, and they upgraded their defensive line. And I could watch it come in 09 and 10 and 11 and 12 when South Carolina was beating them up yearly. The games were close, but South Carolina had the better defensive line when they had Clowney and they had Travian Robertson and Melvin Ingram and all these guys. And look, you got to have a competent quarterback. You got to have a good offensive line. But buddy, if you can't play defense in this league, if you can't stop the run, if you can't get after the quarterback, you're dead in the water. And Georgia, look at what Georgia does in recruiting now. Georgia doesn't care how many commitments they take. They'll take 39, and they're going to weed out the best defensive lineman. I know what was it? Jordan? I think it was Jordan was on with y'all before. He was talking about Elijah Griffin, who's a freshman. And they come in and they throw those kids out there in August and then also in the spring and April and March, and they go, okay, we need 8 defensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen to rotate. And the rest of you, if you get beat out, we got another class of studs coming in right behind you, and you can transfer out. We'll be fine without you. So, you look at what Mississippi did last year with some of the linemen they had. You look at South Carolina, we talked about it, the depth. 2 of the 3 big time guys got drafted. Kyle Kennard was an edge guy. He got drafted and was the Nagurski Award winner. Dylan Stewart was considered one of the top freshmen. Buddy, you better have a defensive line in this league that can attack the quarterback and stop the run, or else I don't really care how good your quarterback is. You're not going to get very far.
Yancey, your reply. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dylan Stewart's going to be one of the premier edge rushers in the country this year. He's a great example. I believe he was a freshman last year at South Carolina, wasn't he?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, he's fantastic. South Carolina's done a good job, sneaky job of getting some really upper talent. That's kind of they kind of go unnoticed. They get some big time some star football players, and it shows on the football field, right? I mean, you look at how many players they had at the combine last year, how many players they had drafted. The freshman quarterback there, or red shirt Sellers, and Dylan Stewart. I mean, there's examples all over where South Carolina might not have that top 5, top 10 recruiting classes, but they get some top 50 national caliber football players. And you got to have star players. You got to have players that can tilt the field your way. You need one at each level on each side of the ball. And we all know that, as you were saying, the defensive line, they make the engine go for any team. If you can't stop the run in the SEC and get after the passer, you're in big time trouble.
Yeah, and I think also a shelf life of a defense is maybe 3 years if it's a new defense. Joe Lee Dunn showed us that it was hot and then it wasn't. For both of y'all, the storylines going into this year again, it's quarterback. You got to have the quarterback. But again, if your QB1 goes down, who's got an Arch Manning waiting in the wings? Nobody. I mean, it just doesn't happen. All right. So Lane Kiffin, Dave Bartu said on here yesterday from College Football Matrix, of all the coaches he's tracked, and he's got a database that goes back, to 2010, every coach, college or pro football, he's the one coach more than any other coach who has turned it around from going in one direction to another. And that's strong. And I look at Shane Beamer. You talking some the quality of coaches in this league, Will. Shane Beamer, learning from his dad, being at Oklahoma with Stoops. Uh, you've got to think that South Carolina people feel really good going forward, the future of that program. We got about 7-8 minutes left, but Shane Beamer, he ain't going to go anywhere. I mean, I think he loves being at South Carolina. There's only 16 of these jobs in the country.
Yeah, well, number one, I can probably go with you as long as possible today. This is actually a better schedule for me. I'm learning. I'm running two different businesses here. I got you in front of me, and I got a business to my right, and I got a business. This is welcome to what I used to do right after the radio show. But so I'm good. I'm listening to you. I'm just participating in a few other things here. But yesterday, so when I came on with you, we were discussing this, and this is where I'm going to go with a lot of my show today. We have what's called Birdies with Beamer.
Yeah.
He has his usual. Now they will actually report on Thursday night, and they'll get going on Friday with practice. But man, it's year 5. It's crazy. Time flies. I'm 43 years old. Time's flying.
Yeah.
Here comes Shane Beamer in right off of COVID in 2020. South Carolina was coming off of 4-8 in 2019 and 2-9 in excuse me 2-8 in COVID, and you hire Rob and Yancey, you guys, Brendan, y'all are outsiders, so y'all can speak to, hey, South Carolina hired a tight ends coach from Oklahoma whose last name is Beamer. Well, we know Beamer, but a tight ends coach, and here we are in year 5, in which he's had a 9-3 season, an 8-5 season. Did have that down year 5-7 in 2023, but year five, Shane Beamer goes into year 5 in the best position of any football coach that South Carolina's had in the last 50 years in 5 years. He's recruiting very well. I'm very interested to see how he's building this particular class. They've recruited some really highly ranked guys, but it looks like they're also going to focus on the transfer portal. Yeah. They've only got about 14 commitments, but they're still a top 25 class. So they're taking high-end talent, and they're going to supplement it. So there's a lot of things like that I think is really interesting with how he's built this program. And that's why I go back to what I told you on August 31st. It's such a big game because you have the nation's attention as the only game. You go out and you have a huge game, you win, you look impressive. People go, man, Shane Beamer's really built something there in 5 years. Look at that quarterback. Look at that defensive end and Dylan Stewart. Look at those defensive backs. It's a great opportunity in year 5 for him.
Yeah, and Yancey, you look at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. That program is on really solid ground now. And the only problem, Lane doesn't like the students leaving the games early. I do think there's a heat dome from Hades that centers around the Mid-South because it's here right now. I don't know what it is. My wife thinks Auburn Jordan-Hare Stadium is on the surface of the sun. She goes,
listen, the swamp is hot.
I better get
right now it is hot.
Anybody with kids will be able to sympathize with this. I'm going to get Mr. Krabs out with the world's smallest violin. Yeah. It's hot everywhere in the South. And I agree. But
it's getting gamey right now.
Yeah,
it's like so hot. It sneeze wrong. It's going to be a hurricane. We are all just holding our breath.
It is.
It always feels hotter though whenever you're playing Slippery Rock every non-conference game, right? That's the deal.
Yeah,
you get good non-conference teams. You get a good schedule at home. It's not so hot. But when you're playing Slippery Rock and it's 55-10, and in the middle of the second quarter, it feels really hot. So the playoff committee, hopefully they're going to have you heard some words of encouragement. They're going to start looking more at your competition and not your record this year. We'll see. And Ole Miss's sake, they've actually got a good home schedule. They play Tulane at home. They play Washington State at home. They've got They play LSU. The conference records a lot better. Conference teams are a lot better at home this year, so it won't feel nearly as hot. There won't be nearly as many students leaving in the second quarter when it's 55-10 against a nobody. I mean, of course they're going to leave the game. So that's really the competition of the teams that are playing. The playoffs set a horrific example last year of not caring about who you play, with teams like Indiana getting into the the playoffs. Did you see Indiana cancel the Virginia series? My gosh, I mean. That's the result of what the playoff committee did last year, and they're going to have to bounce back this year and do the total opposite. They're going to have to let in, 2, 3, 4 teams that are 9-3 that are much better than these 11-1 teams that are, have the 90th ranked schedule in the country. So it's all about the parameters of what the committee set last year, and they got to do the opposite this year.
Yeah, and that may be Kurt Signetti, his years at James Madison, just not liking Charlottesville, but that's petty and ridiculous. Play real teams. The fans want to see it. And Brendan's right, and all of y'all are. There used to be a panic if you lost a game. Now, you're going to see when we go to 16 or 32, whatever we go to, 9-3. Hell, we all remember 2007, the undefeated Patriots played a 9-7 team in the regular season, New York Giants. Plexico, Burris made that incredible catch, and they beat the Patriots. So that's what makes people watch every game. Look, we run out of time. Will Gunner, unbelievable stuff. Thanks so long for staying on with us. Yancey Porter, y'all have a great time up there in Gatlinburg. We'll be thinking about you. At least the water's cold up there, okay? But Will and Yancey, really appreciate your time with us. So we'll do it again next week. This is a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. Let me say something. You're getting a new car, truck, SUV, time, need a ride. Get out to Landers Ford. And Brendan does an incredible job of sharing what's going on in these businesses. But looking for your next ride, let me just say this. Landers Ford has the full 25 lineup. F-150 trucks, F-250s, Broncos, man, they look good. The Robin Egg Blue ladies with the white wall tires, the retro model, and Ford across the front, man, that is hot. The Ford Ranger, the Ford Maverick, Escape, Explorer, Mustang Mach-E, and more. Take advantage of special low APR financing, lease deals, and up to $1,750 in Ford retail bonus cash on select models delivered by early September. Check out the homepage. Landers Ford. It's landersfordmemphis.com. They have got Brad Bellamy, the general manager, out there to help you and make the process as easy as possible. They're just great people to work with. Landers Ford, where Germantown and Collierville meet. And also Hewlett and Dunn. Look, this is what's cool. And I applaud, Brendan, putting up here about the boots. That ready to upgrade your boots. Every week, Hewlett and Dunn drops a boot of the week on their Instagram. Sometimes it's a rare exotic. I know Audrey has some ostrich boots, man. They're great looking. Sometimes a classic Western, but it's always a head turner, and I can promise you that. I talked to J.M. Huffman out at Hewlett and Dunn yesterday. He said, so far today, I've had 28 boxes of stuff delivered. New stuff coming in. Filson Luggage, Barber, STS, Old South, Devil Dog Jeans. My goodness, man. They've got great looking women's clothing, kids' clothes, boots, over 7,000 pairs. Just an unbelievable place to go to. And Rumble Boxing Gym in Memphis at Union and McLean. How you fight is how you live. It's real simple, folks. As we get older, it's more important that we work out every day. And Rumble Boxing, find them on social media, Twitter, hit that QR code. Ann Camp Lee, a great friend. Let her know that you heard about it on Sidelines. Great people to deal with. And those gummies, they are Brendan. Unbelievable show, as always. That's fun. Keep posting this channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight on this channel.
Tonight. On this, the
and watch,
lowdown.
Hey, and watch that Scarbo Knows podcast yesterday about UAB and Memphis and conference expansion. Unbelievable stuff,
Yep.
Brendan.
Yep,
You
check it all out.
Nobody better.
Check it all out. Check it all out. We're all over. We're all everywhere. We will talk to you Talk to you soon enough. As
See you
soon as I
tonight.
find all the buttons and I'd get more coffee. Good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy.